Now at this point, we have connectivity between our different VLANs. We set up switch virtual interfaces on a layer 3 switch, and now we have connectivity. Although we still have to connect to the rest of the world. We have to use the router to get to the rest of the world. So we need connectivity between the layer 3 switch and the router, which creates a little bit of a problem for us. So this video is to address how do we solve that problem with connectivity to the rest of the world. In our last video, we set up switch virtual interfaces on our switch, our layer 3 switch, so we could communicate between VLANs. And we actually just specified two. We specified one for VLAN 10 and we specified one for VLAN 20. So now we have connectivity. We're able to route between VLAN 10 and VLAN 20. The thing is that what's still missing, there's still a missing piece, and that is how do we get to the outside world? This router is connected to the internet, and we want to gain access to the internet. So somehow we need to get to the outside world. That means that we need to establish this connection between our layer 3 switch and our router. And it needs to be a connection that is on a different local area network. Actually, it could be on one of these. It could be on VLAN 20, VLAN 30, VLAN 40. It could be. But what the preference is so we have more control and more security as it would be on its own network. So we actually have to assign a network to this. So I've got 10.240.0. And then we'll say 0/30. And I chose a really small network because we just have two interfaces, the router interface and the layer 3 switch interface. So just two interfaces. So I'm just going to do a /30 on here. And that should be good for the purpose of this. Now on the router side, in both of these cases, in both of my examples that I'm going to give, we're just going to make that it's a routed port. It's it's a physical port with an IP address on it, and that's it. So in both of these cases, that part of the equation doesn't change. The router is going to be configured with a physical port. But what we have the option to do is we have two different options with this layer 3 switch. So one of the options is to turn one of the ports on that side into a routed port. So we could have a routed port on that side that makes a connection between these two devices. All right. So the other option is we could actually set up a switch virtual interface on here that's going to specifically be a connection between these two devices. So that, and in that scenario, we would assign it to a VLAN, and then we would assign the port that this switch is connected into. That port we would assign to that VLAN. So we're going to take a more in-depth, closer look into both those options. But really, the gist of this is that we have a router and a switch that need to be connected in together. Typically, what we do with that is we put it on its own network. And so therefore, we have to have a connection between there. And we'll have to set up a new SVI, or we can set up a routed port.